At Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, the living and the dead share the same halls, and nowhere else in the wizarding world is this coexistence so vivid. Ghosts glide through classrooms, peer from behind tapestries, and attend feasts in the great hall, as if time never ended for them. They are not terrifying specters designed to frighten students, but enduring presences that make Hogwarts what it is, both eerie and comforting. The castle, ancient and steeped in memory, seems to demand such companions. It is as though the stones themselves hold on to the people who once lived within them, refusing to let go. To fall asleep thinking of Hogwarts is to imagine its ghostly residents drifting silently across the corridors, guardians of memory who watch, whisper, and occasionally guide the young witches and wizards who pass through. The wizarding world is full of stories about spirits, but Hogwarts stands apart in the sheer number of ghosts that linger within its walls. Other magical buildings might have one or two, perhaps tied to a tragedy or some unfinished task, but Hogwarts hosts an entire community of them. They are tied to the founding of the school itself, to its legacy of teaching and remembrance. To the founders, death was not an end but a threshold, and it seems natural that those who loved the school most, or who carried deep burdens within its walls, chose to remain. Their presence provides not only continuity but lessons, for every ghost carries a story, and every story offers wisdom to those who listen. Students who pass through the castle are never truly alone, for the past walks beside them, speaking softly in echoes and silences. One of the first things young witches and wizards learn about Hogwarts ghosts is the difference between them and other supernatural beings. A ghost is the echo of a witch or wizard who chose, consciously or unconsciously, to stay behind after death. They are shadows of their former selves, translucent and often tinged with the emotions that bound them to the mortal world. They cannot touch or be touched, cannot taste food or drink, cannot change or grow beyond what they were at the moment of death. Poltergeists like Peeves, by contrast, are manifestations of mischief and chaos, never human and never truly dead, but born of the collective energy of the living. Portraits, too, are distinct from ghosts. Though they speak, laugh, and remember, portraits are magical impressions, imbued with fragments of personality, but not true consciousness. Ghosts are something else entirely. The presence of a person caught between worlds, still thinking, still feeling, yet denied the full experience of life. The choice to linger as a ghost is not one most witches and wizards make lightly. In fact, many avoid it entirely, preferring to move on into whatever lies beyond. To remain is often a sign of fear, regret, or unfinished business. In the case of Hogwarts' most famous ghosts, the decision reflects longing for the school, attachment to its houses, or sorrow that prevents them from letting go. They are not tortured in the way Muggle stories often describe spirits, but they are limited. Their inability to change, to truly move forward, is both comforting and melancholy. They can tell stories of the past, they can offer advice drawn from memory, but they cannot share in the fullness of life. This limitation is a lesson in itself, a quiet reminder to students that to live fully means to accept change, even when it is painful. Life with ghosts at Hogwarts is not solemn, however. The students grow used to them quickly, learning when to greet them politely and when to step aside to let them pass through a wall. Ghosts attend the feasts in the great hall, sitting among the living though they cannot eat. They drift through classrooms, occasionally offering commentary, and sometimes even assist students in small ways. Nearly Headless Nick is known for guiding first years through their anxieties, The fat friar offers cheerful encouragement to nervous Hufflepuffs. The Grey Lady provides quiet counsel to those who earn her trust, and even the intimidating Bloody Baron ensures order in Slytherin House. Ghosts are part of the rhythm of Hogwarts, as ordinary in their way as moving staircases or enchanted ceilings. Their presence makes the castle feel alive with history, reminding every student that they walk in the footsteps of countless generations. Etiquette with ghosts is something every Hogwarts student picks up over time. They learn not to ask the Bloody Baron how he got his stains, nor to mock Nearly Headless Nick about his botched beheading. They know to speak gently to moaning Myrtle if they wish to avoid her tears, and to listen carefully to the Grey Lady, who rarely opens her heart. The fat friar will always appreciate a respectful greeting, and Peeves, though not a ghost in the truest sense, is often best managed with bribes or by invoking the authority of the Baron. Ghosts expect courtesy, for they were once witches and wizards with dignity and lives of their own. Treating them as spectacles rather than people is the quickest way to earn their ire. At the same time, students discover that ghosts are often eager for conversation, grateful for the chance to share their stories and relive old days. At feasts, ghosts add their own eerie beauty to the celebration. They glide between the tables, silvery and glowing in candlelight, their voices mingling with the clatter of cutlery and laughter of students. On Halloween especially, their presence is at its height. The school hosts a ghostly banquet with dishes of rotten fish, stale bread, and other foods that emit strong smells. Though inedible to the living, these scents remind ghosts of the meals they once enjoyed, allowing them to savor echoes of memory. The students watch with fascination as the ghosts gather, some chatting cheerfully, others more somber. These feasts are reminders of the thin line between life and death at Hogwarts, of how the two can coexist in harmony. The symbolic role of ghosts at the school is perhaps their greatest importance. Each house has its ghost, a figure who embodies not only the history, but the values and flaws of that house. The Bloody Baron represents Slytherin ambition turned to tragedy, a warning that pride and obsession can destroy. The Grey Lady embodies Ravenclaw brilliance marred by envy and regret, reminding her house of the dangers of arrogance. Nearly Headless Nick stands for Gryffindor courage and the acceptance of imperfection, teaching that even failure cannot erase worth. The fat friar symbolizes Hufflepuff kindness and forgiveness, showing that goodness outlasts even betrayal. Together, they are more than ornaments. They are moral guides, stories made flesh, or rather, made ghost. For every student who listens, they offer wisdom about what it means to live and about what it means to leave. And so, as the castle quiets at night and students drift to sleep in their towers and dormitories, the ghosts continue their silent rounds. They move through walls and corridors, keep watch over chambers long forgotten, and whisper to each other in voices that rustle like wind. Their presence is both eerie and comforting, reminding every child that Hogwarts is not just a school but a living memory. To fall asleep in that castle is to feel that the past is still present, that wisdom endures, and that those who came before still walk beside you, offering lessons in every sigh of air and flicker of candlelight. The ghosts are not just echoes. They are teachers of another kind, patient and eternal, carrying the history of Hogwarts so that each new generation may learn not only from books, but from the stories of the dead. Helena Ravenclaw's life began in the shadow of greatness. As the daughter of Rowena Ravenclaw, one of the 4 founders of Hogwarts, She inherited a legacy before she could even understand it. From the moment she could walk through the stone corridors of the castle her mother helped design, Helena was measured against impossible standards. Her mother was brilliant, visionary, admired across the wizarding world for her mind and her magical creations. To be Rowena's daughter was to feel both pride and burden. Every compliment Helena received was compared to her mother's genius, every misstep magnified. She was clever, yes, but she wanted to be more than clever. She wanted to be extraordinary, to step out from the long shadow that her mother cast. This longing shaped her choices. Helena saw her mother's prized diadem, the enchanted crown said to make the wearer wiser, not only as a relic, but as a symbol. To her, it represented the brilliance that Rowena embodied and that Helena desperately wished to claim for herself. The diadem was no ordinary ornament. Infused with magic, it amplified the clarity of thought, sharpened the imagination, and allowed wisdom to bloom. For Helena, whose insecurities burned beneath her calm exterior, the diadem seemed like a promise. If she wore it, perhaps she would not only be her mother's daughter, but her equal or even her superior. The desire was irresistible. In a moment of boldness that was part defiance, part desperation, Helena stole the diadem and fled Hogwarts, determined to find her own path and prove herself away from her mother's gaze. Her theft wounded Rowena more than words can capture. For the great founder, it was not only the loss of a treasured artifact, but the betrayal of her only child. Legends say that Rowena's health declined soon after, her brilliant mind troubled by grief and perhaps by illness. She longed to see Helena once more, to reconcile, and in her final days, she sent one of her most trusted allies to find her daughter. That man was the Bloody Baron, a stern, ambitious wizard who loved Helena with a passion she did not return. His love was not gentle, but consuming, marked by jealousy and control. When he found Helena hiding in a distant forest, she refused to come back. Their confrontation turned violent, and in his fury, the Baron stabbed her. As soon as the act was done, remorse overwhelmed him, and he took his own life. Thus both perished, and both returned to Hogwarts, their stories bound together forever. Helena became the Grey Lady, the ghost of Ravenclaw Tower. Unlike the Fat Friar with his jovial warmth or Nearly Headless Nick with his cheerful chatter, Helena was distant, melancholy, and elusive. She carried the weight of her choices into death, her betrayal of her mother and her violent end shaping her spirit. She rarely spoke to students, and when she did, it was often in hushed, guarded tones. Her beauty, described even in her ghostly form, carried an aura of sadness, as though she remained forever in mourning, not only for her life, but for the possibilities she had thrown away. For Ravenclaws, she was both a mystery and a lesson, a reminder that brilliance without humility leads to ruin. Despite her distance, Helena occasionally opened herself to those who showed her respect. Some Ravenclaws, desperate for guidance, sought her out in the quiet of the tower. She would answer their questions cryptically, her words layered with riddles, but in those riddles was wisdom. For the students who took her seriously, the Grey Lady could be a valuable mentor, not in the way of classroom instruction, but in teaching patience, perspective, and caution. She reminded them that intelligence is not enough. One must also temper it with kindness and honesty. Her story became part of Ravenclaw lore, told to young students as a warning not to let envy or pride overwhelm their pursuit of knowledge. For centuries, Helena kept her greatest secret close, the truth about the diadem. Though she had fled with it, She could not bear to wear it after her death, nor could she bring herself to return it. The relic lay hidden in a hollow tree deep in the Albanian forests, forgotten by all but her. To most, it was lost forever. When Tom Riddle, years before he became Voldemort, sought knowledge about Horcruxes, he charmed and manipulated the Grey Lady into revealing her secret. Lonely and vulnerable, Helena confided in him, perhaps hoping that finally someone would understand her pain. Riddle's cunning turned her story into a weapon. He retrieved the diadem, twisted it into a Horcrux, and concealed it within Hogwarts itself. Helena, unknowingly, had enabled the rise of the darkest wizard of their age. Her story thus became entangled not only with the founding of the school but with its greatest crisis. Her redemption came in her final act of truth. During the Battle of Hogwarts, Harry Potter, desperate to find and destroy Voldemort's Horcruxes, sought her out. Unlike Riddle, Harry approached with honesty, treating her not as a tool but as a person. At first, she resisted, wary of betrayal. But Harry's sincerity, his respect for her grief, broke through her defenses. For the first time in centuries, Helena told her story fully: the theft, the betrayal, the diadem's hiding place. In that confession, she not only helped Harry but unburdened herself of centuries of silence. Her truth became the key to Voldemort's downfall. By revealing her shame, she turned it into strength, proving that even in death, one can find redemption. The symbolism of Helena's story runs deep. She represents the danger of envy, the loneliness of pride, and the possibility of forgiveness. For Ravenclaws, she is a reminder that intellect without humility can lead to isolation, that brilliance must be paired with compassion. She also embodies the resilience of truth. Though she lived and died with regret, her final act gave meaning to her suffering, transforming her from a figure of tragedy into one of quiet heroism. Students who see her drifting through the tower know they are in the presence of someone who has lived the lessons they are meant to learn. Helena also highlights the strange relationship between ghosts and the living. She is bound by sorrow, yet still able to influence the course of history. She cannot change her past, yet she can guide the future. Her existence shows that Hogwarts ghosts are not merely decorations or curiosities. They are part of the school's wisdom, carrying stories too old for books and emotions too raw for history texts. To speak with the Grey Lady is to converse with the past itself, and for those who listen carefully, it is to receive a warning written in sorrow and regret. For all her sadness, there is a kind of beauty in Helena's enduring presence. She did not disappear into the unknown but chose to remain, tethered by her love of Hogwarts and her longing to be understood. Students who encounter her late at night in the tower often describe the experience as haunting yet strangely comforting. She is not a figure of terror but of remembrance, reminding every Ravenclaw that wisdom has a cost and that knowledge must be paired with humility. To fall asleep thinking of her is to imagine her silver form gliding past the windows of the tower, her long robes trailing like mist, her eyes filled with sorrow and hope alike. She is the Grey Lady, the eternal daughter of Ravenclaw, and her story continues to whisper lessons across the centuries. The Bloody Baron's presence in Hogwarts is among the most unsettling. Students speak of him in hushed tones, often lowering their voices when he glides past. His very image is frightening, a tall figure dressed in dark, archaic robes, his chains clinking faintly as he moves, his face grim and unyielding. Most chilling of all are the blood stains that cover his robes, stains that did not fade even when he became a ghost. Unlike the playful fat friar or the melancholy gray lady, the Baron inspires fear, not sympathy. Yet beneath the frightening surface lies a story of passion, betrayal, and tragedy that shaped not only him, but the very soul of Slytherin House. The Baron's life before Hogwarts is shrouded in mystery. Some legends suggest he came from a noble family, born into privilege and expectation, his stern demeanor shaped by an upbringing of rigid discipline. He was ambitious, proud, and unyielding in his beliefs, traits that naturally aligned him with Slytherin values. Where others saw obstacles, he saw challenges to be conquered. Where others hesitated, he pressed forward. He became known for his commanding presence, for the way people obeyed him out of fear as much as respect. To Slytherin students, he embodied the strength and control they often admired, but these very qualities would also lead to his downfall. His life became intertwined with Helena Ravenclaw's, the beautiful and brilliant daughter of Rowena Ravenclaw. Helena, desperate to step out from her mother's shadow, fled the school with her mother's prized diadem. Rowena, gravely ill, wished to see her daughter one last time, and it was the Baron she sent to retrieve her. Why she trusted him for such a delicate mission remains uncertain. Perhaps she believed his authority and persistence would succeed where others failed. Perhaps she knew of his feelings for Helena and thought they might soften his resolve. For the Baron, the mission was personal. He loved Helena with a passion that bordered on obsession, but Helena did not return his affection. Where he saw devotion, she saw suffocation. Where he saw inevitability, she saw a trap. When the Baron found Helena hiding in the Albanian forests, their confrontation became the defining moment of his life and afterlife. Helena refused to return with him, declaring her independence and defying both her mother's wishes and the Baron's authority. To a man used to command, this rejection was unbearable. Enraged, consumed by the humiliation of her defiance and the weight of his unrequited love, he killed her in a fit of passion. The moment the deed was done, his fury collapsed into despair. He realized he had destroyed the very person he claimed to love, and in his anguish, he turned his weapon upon himself. His suicide bound his soul in torment, tethering him forever to the scene of his crime. Thus the bloody Baron returned to Hogwarts, stained with blood that no death could wash away. The Baron's ghostly form reflects his tragedy. The chains he wears are not merely decorative but symbolic of the guilt that binds him. Each link represents his remorse, a self-inflicted punishment he can never escape. The bloodstains, dark and permanent, are reminders of the violence he committed. Unlike other ghosts, who sometimes find small joys in their afterlife, the Baron is joyless. He does not laugh, he does not comfort, and he rarely speaks. When he does, his words are heavy, his tone cold, his presence oppressive. He is a constant reminder of what unchecked ambition, passion, and pride can lead to, a warning etched into the very fabric of Slytherin House. Despite his fearsome nature, the Baron holds a vital role at Hogwarts, particularly among Slytherins. As the house ghost, he embodies both the house's strengths and its flaws. Slytherins admire ambition, cunning, and power, but they also understand the dangers of excess. The Baron, with his tragic story, is their cautionary tale. His authority within the house is absolute. Even the most rebellious students lower their eyes when he passes. His silence is more commanding than another's shout, his presence enough to quell disputes. He may not mentor his house with warmth as the fat friar does, but he commands discipline. Through fear, he maintains unity. Perhaps most surprisingly, the Baron has one peculiar relationship that no other ghost shares: his influence over Peeves the poltergeist. Peeves delights in chaos, mocking professors, throwing objects, and terrifying students. No one at Hogwarts can control him, not the teachers, not even Dumbledore himself. The only being Peeves fears is the Bloody Baron. With a single glare, the Baron can silence Peeves, sending him scuttling away with uncharacteristic obedience. This strange dynamic hints at the Baron's hidden strength, suggesting that even in death his authority carries weight. Why Peeves, a spirit of mischief, submits to him is a mystery. Perhaps it is the Baron's sheer intensity, or perhaps Peeves, born of chaos, instinctively respects the deeper chaos within the Baron's soul. Whatever the reason, the fact that only the Baron can command Peeves gives him a unique and essential role in the castle. The Bloody Baron's reputation among students is complex. First years often whisper terrifying stories about him, daring each other to approach him in dark corridors. Many avoid him altogether, unnerved by his blood-stained robes and chilling aura. Yet as they grow older, some Slytherins learn to respect him, seeing in him a mirror of their own ambitions and fears. He becomes a figure not of horror but of solemn reverence, a reminder that greatness must be tempered by restraint. To other houses, he remains frightening, a ghost who seems more specter than guide. Unlike Nearly Headless Nick or the Fat Friar, who welcome conversation, the Baron rarely entertains idle chatter. He is there to be endured, not enjoyed. In the grand narrative of Hogwarts, the Baron represents the darker side of the human heart. Where Helena embodies the sorrow of envy, he embodies the danger of obsession. Together their stories intertwine, a tragic duet of love, betrayal, and regret. They remind all students that even the greatest talents and ambitions can be undone by unchecked emotion. For Slytherins especially, the Baron is a lesson carved in silence. Ambition without control leads to ruin, and passion without balance destroys what it loves most. Yet, for all his fearsome reputation, there is a strange dignity in the Baron's eternal penance. He does not deny his guilt. He wears it visibly. He does not seek sympathy, nor does he ask for forgiveness. His chains and stains are his own burden, and he carries them unflinchingly. In this way, he teaches another kind of lesson, one not often recognized. He shows that actions cannot be undone, that consequences endure, and that some burdens must be borne forever. For a school dedicated to teaching magic, the Baron reminds students of something even greater than spell work, the weight of choice. At night, when the castle is quiet and the shadows stretch long, students sometimes hear the faint rattle of his chains echoing through the corridors. It is a sound that chills the blood, yet it also reassures. It means the Baron is still there, keeping his eternal vigil. He is not a comforting ghost, but he is a guardian of sorts, a stern protector who ensures that chaos does not overwhelm the school. To fall asleep imagining him is to picture the tall, grim figure gliding through the dungeons, his eyes hollow, his robes heavy with stains, his silence filled with unspoken warning. He is the Bloody Baron, forever bound by regret, forever a symbol of the dangers and the dignity of Slytherin House. Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington is one of the most recognizable ghosts at Hogwarts, and though his name is grand and formal, most know him by the nickname that has trailed him for centuries, Nearly Headless Nick. His appearance alone ensures that students never forget him. His head, partially severed from his body, hangs by a mere shred of ghostly sinew, wobbling grotesquely whenever he turns too quickly or bows. To some, this might seem horrifying, but Nick's genial smile and courtly manners soften the effect. He is both comical and sad, a gentleman caught between life and death, remembered for his flamboyance as much as for his tragic end. As the ghost of Gryffindor House, he is beloved by many students, though his story reveals a man who lived in pursuit of acceptance and who died with both pride and regret. Nicholas lived during the late Middle Ages, a time when magic was viewed with suspicion and often conflated with superstition. He was born into a noble family and grew up accustomed to courtly life. With a flair for dramatic gestures and a desire to impress, he pursued a career that brought him into the company of royalty. His talent for charms and transformations made him a favored figure in certain circles, and he delighted in demonstrating his abilities at feasts and gatherings. But his showmanship was not matched by flawless execution. In one notorious incident, he attempted to use magic to fix a lady-in-waiting's teeth. Instead of straightening them, he left her with tusks. This blunder, humiliating in a court obsessed with appearances, marked the beginning of his fall from grace. Accusations of malpractice and suspicions of darker magic soon followed. Though Nicholas had no cruel intentions, the mistakes he made in his spells cost him dearly. He was sentenced to execution, an end he faced with the same dramatic flair that had defined his life. But the beheading went terribly wrong. The axe used against him was blunt, and instead of one clean stroke, it took 45 blows without fully severing his head. He died neither cleanly nor with dignity, and when he returned as a ghost, the half-severed head remained, an eternal reminder of his botched execution. His nickname, Nearly Headless Nick, was both a joke and a wound, a constant reminder of the ridicule he endured even in death. Despite this humiliating legacy, Nick carried himself with remarkable cheerfulness. At Hogwarts, he became the Gryffindor House ghost, bringing with him a sense of charm and courtesy. He was a man of manners, always bowing, addressing students with politeness, and speaking in florid, old-fashioned language. His presence at feasts brought a touch of pageantry, his ghostly plumes and ruffles still gleaming faintly in candlelight. Students, especially first years, found comfort in his friendliness. He welcomed them to Gryffindor Tower with warmth, offering advice and sharing stories of the castle's long history. In a school where ghosts often reflected the darker sides of life and death, Nick's presence reassured the brave-hearted Gryffindors that they were not alone. Yet beneath his genial exterior, Nick longed for recognition. His greatest desire was to join the Headless Hunt, a rowdy society of decapitated ghosts who jousted, played games, and celebrated their gruesome condition with pride. But Nick, being not fully headless, was denied entry. The rejection cut deeply. To be nearly headless meant he belonged neither fully to the living nor fully to the dead, neither to the noble ghosts of courtly demeanor, nor to the boisterous headless spirits who reveled in their condition. He occupied a liminal space, always striving to belong, yet always on the margins. The laughter that followed his nickname reminded him of this inescapable truth. His cheerfulness, though genuine, was also a mask for the sadness of never quite being enough in the eyes of others. Nick's interactions with students often revealed this vulnerability. When Harry Potter and his friends first encountered him, they were struck by both his friendliness and his insecurity. Nick boasted of his connections and his courtly past, yet he bristled at mockery about his head. He invited Harry to his death day party in an attempt to prove his significance, hoping to impress him with the spectacle of ghostly celebration. The party, held in the dungeons, was a gloomy affair, filled with hundreds of spirits in varying stages of decay. Food rotted on the tables, candles burned blue, and the guests moaned and whispered. Nick tried to make the event grand, but its dreariness only highlighted the gap between ghosts and the living. Harry, sympathetic but uncomfortable, realized how much Nick yearned for acknowledgement, how much he wanted to be seen as important. Nick's relationship with Harry deepened during moments of grief. After the death of Sirius Black, when Harry was lost in despair, he sought answers from Nick about the afterlife. Their conversation revealed Nick's own regrets. He admitted that becoming a ghost was not triumph but fear. He had clung to the mortal world, unwilling to face the unknown beyond. In that admission, Nick revealed the limits of his existence. He was not a guide to eternity, but a reminder of what happens when one cannot let go. His honesty, though painful, gave Harry clarity. It showed him that death was not something to be feared or delayed by clinging, but something to be accepted when the time came. In this way, Nick offered Harry comfort not by diminishing sorrow, but by providing truth. For Gryffindor House, Nick became more than a curiosity. He embodied courage of a different kind. He was not fearless, for his ghostly state came from fear of moving on, but he lived or unlived with dignity, despite his flaws. His presence taught Gryffindors that bravery is not always about heroic duels or daring feats. Sometimes it is about facing ridicule with grace, about maintaining kindness in the face of mockery, and about continuing to stand tall even when the world remembers you for your failures. In his imperfection, Nick was profoundly human, and perhaps that is why so many students loved him. At night, when Gryffindor Tower grew quiet, Nick could sometimes be seen drifting through the common room, humming faintly or bowing to portraits as if still at court. His silvery form flickered in the firelight, his half-severed head tilting precariously with every movement. Students who glimpsed him often felt comforted, as though they were watched over by a guardian who understood both their dreams and their insecurities. Nearly Headless Nick was no hero in the grand histories of magic, but in the lives of countless Gryffindor students, he was a symbol of resilience, charm, and quiet guidance. To imagine him is to see a figure both comical and tragic, forever bowing, forever smiling, forever nearly headless. His story reminds us that even in failure there can be dignity, and that even in ridicule there can be warmth. He is Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington, the ghost of Gryffindor Tower, a man who longed for recognition but who, in the end, gave generations of students something far greater: comfort, laughter, and a lesson in living courageously, even after death. The Fat Friar is unlike any other ghost at Hogwarts, for while many of the castle's spirits carry sorrow, regret, or anger into the afterlife, he carries kindness. His round face, framed by a ghostly tonsure, beams with good cheer. His robes hang loosely around his plump figure, and though he drifts weightlessly like all ghosts, there is still something hearty and grounding about him, as though he brings warmth wherever he goes. To the students of Hufflepuff House, the Friar is a comforting presence, a reminder that their house values of loyalty, fairness, and kindness are not only ideals but living or ghostly truths. Unlike the Grey Lady, who keeps her distance, or the Bloody Baron, who frightens even his own students, the Fat Friar is approachable. He listens, he laughs, and he forgives, embodying the very best of what it means to be Hufflepuff. Before his death, the Friar lived as a clergyman in the Middle Ages. He was gentle, devout, and endlessly charitable, always eager to heal and to help. His reputation was one of generosity. He gave food to the poor, tended to the sick, and comforted those in despair. But the magical world is rarely kind to those who stray too far from convention, and the friar's kindness sometimes put him at odds with authority. He was rumored to have used charms to cure ailments where prayer failed, or to produce food when supplies ran out. For ordinary people, his miracles were a blessing, but for leaders suspicious of his powers, his actions crossed a line. Whispers of sorcery, of dealing with forces beyond what a friar should, began to spread. His generosity, which had once made him beloved, became the justification for suspicion and eventually his execution. Even in death, the fat friar bore no grudge. Where another ghost might cling to bitterness, he chose to remain cheerful. His forgiveness was not weakness, but strength. He seemed to understand that cruelty often came from fear, and he pitied those who condemned him more than he resented them. This deep well of compassion is what made him the natural ghost of Hufflepuff House. Just as Helga Hufflepuff herself was known for taking in students others overlooked, the friar took joy in comforting those who felt small, overlooked, or afraid. For centuries, he has been a constant presence in the Hufflepuff common room, where his gentle humor and round, smiling face reassure every nervous first year that they are welcome, that they are safe. Students describe the friar as endlessly patient. He listens to their troubles with sincere attention, nodding thoughtfully before offering advice that is simple but wise. When others might mock or dismiss, he encourages. He delights in the small victories of his housemates, congratulating them for passing exams, winning Quidditch matches, or simply standing up for themselves. He does not sneer at mistakes, but urges students to try again. His laughter is soft, his forgiveness boundless. Where other house ghosts embody warnings or tragedies, the fat friar embodies comfort. He teaches by example that kindness is not naivety but courage, and that gentleness can be a form of strength just as much as bravery or ambition. The friar is not without his quirks. Students sometimes notice that he maintains certain habits from his mortal life, blessing those who sneeze, humming hymns as he floats past, or pretending to nibble at the food in the great hall, even though it passes straight through him. These small eccentricities only make him more beloved. He often jokes about his own death, shaking his head in mock dismay at the absurdity of being punished for kindness. His sense of humor softens the fear of death for many students, reminding them that life's end need not erase joy. He even teases other ghosts gently, though never cruelly. To him, all of Hogwarts is a community, and he sees no reason why the dead should not also laugh. For Hufflepuffs especially, the friar's presence affirms their house identity. Where Gryffindors look to Nearly Headless Nick for reassurance and bravery, and Ravenclaws ponder the Grey Lady's cautionary tale, Hufflepuffs find in their friar a mirror of their values. He exemplifies loyalty, fairness, and kindness, not as abstract ideals but as lived truths. His story shows that even when kindness is punished, it is never wasted. His forgiveness of those who condemned him proves that bitterness only deepens wounds, while compassion heals. His cheerfulness, even after centuries as a ghost, is a reminder that joy can endure even in hardship. For students often dismissed as ordinary or less remarkable, the friar proves that goodness is its own form of greatness. The symbolic role of the fat friar at Hogwarts is profound. While the other house ghosts remind students of ambition, intelligence, or bravery, The friar represents the overlooked power of kindness. He is proof that gentleness can echo across centuries, shaping lives long after death. Students who enter Hufflepuff often carry insecurities, feeling overshadowed by the boldness of Gryffindor, the cunning of Slytherin, or the brilliance of Ravenclaw. The friar, smiling and patient, shows them that there is no shame in being gentle, no weakness in being fair, no smallness in being kind. His presence affirms that every student has value, that every effort matters, and that every heart can make a difference. Even beyond Hufflepuff, many students grow fond of him. Those who encounter him in the halls describe him as one of the easiest ghosts to approach. He greets them warmly, offers blessings, and sometimes even slips into gentle advice whether asked for or not. Unlike the Grey Lady, who guards her secrets, or the Bloody Baron, who intimidates, the friar seems to welcome the company of the living. His optimism radiates like sunlight, cutting through the gloom of castle corridors. To fall asleep thinking of him is to imagine a plump, kindly figure drifting peacefully through the Hufflepuff basement, humming softly, smiling at every student he sees, and spreading warmth in a castle often filled with shadows. In the grand tapestry of Hogwarts ghosts, the fat friar may seem the simplest, but his story carries weight. He shows that not all hauntings are grim, that sometimes the dead remain not out of bitterness, but out of love. His eternal presence in Hufflepuff House is a gift, a reassurance that kindness endures beyond the grave. His laughter, his blessings, his forgiveness, all are reminders that goodness leaves echoes as strong as any magic. For the Hufflepuffs who wake in the night feeling lonely or unsure, the friar is always near, ready to smile, ready to listen, ready to remind them that they are never truly alone. Myrtle Warren, known to most students simply as Moaning Myrtle, is one of the most infamous ghosts of Hogwarts. While other spirits drift with dignity or inspire awe, Myrtle lingers in bathrooms, sobbing loudly and wailing about her misfortunes. At first glance, she seems little more than a nuisance, a noisy, melodramatic ghost whose endless crying irritates those who stumble across her. Yet beneath her shrill voice and dramatic weeping lies a story of deep sadness, bullying, and tragic death. Myrtle's life and afterlife reflect both the cruelty children can inflict on one another and the strange ways Hogwarts remembers those it failed to protect. Myrtle was born in the early 20th century, an awkward, bespectacled girl who never quite fit in. When she came to Hogwarts, she was sorted into Ravenclaw, but her time at school was far from happy. She was shy, insecure, and painfully self-conscious about her appearance. Her thick glasses and timid demeanor made her an easy target for bullies, who mocked her relentlessly. Olive Hornby, one of her classmates, was especially cruel, teasing Myrtle about everything from her looks to her nervous habits. For Myrtle, school was not a place of growth and belonging, but of isolation and humiliation. Her death came in her teenage years, and it was as shocking as it was tragic. One day, after fleeing from Olive Hornby's bullying, Myrtle hid in the girls' bathroom on the first floor, her refuge from torment. There, she encountered the basilisk, released by Tom Riddle through the Chamber of Secrets. With a single, deadly glance, the serpent killed her. Her body was discovered later, and her death marked the opening of the chamber, though the truth was buried at the time. For decades, the school whispered about the mysterious tragedy, never realizing that the moaning ghost in the bathroom was the victim herself. Myrtle's life was cut short before it had the chance to blossom, leaving her trapped in the form of the awkward, weeping girl she had always been. As a ghost, Myrtle's personality reflects the insecurities and pains of her life. She is melodramatic, quick to tears, and prone to loud complaints. She moans about her death, about her mistreatment, about her loneliness, filling the bathroom with echoes of sorrow. Students often avoid her haunt for fear of being bombarded with her weeping or her tendency to sulk in toilet bowls. For generations, she was treated as an annoyance, her bathroom regarded as cursed with endless sobbing. Yet, Myrtle's sadness is more than theatrics. It is the raw grief of a child who never felt loved, who never belonged, and who was robbed of any chance to grow into herself. Her wails are the sound of a life forever unfinished. Myrtle's relationship with students is complex. Many avoid her, but those who show her kindness often glimpse another side of her. Harry, Ron, and Hermione, in their second year, encountered Myrtle repeatedly during the attacks on Muggle-born students. At first they found her irritating, but gradually they began to see her loneliness. When Harry spoke with her sincerely, she opened up about the moment of her death, revealing details that became critical in solving the mystery of the Chamber of Secrets. Her willingness to talk about her final moments allowed Harry and his friends to piece together the truth and eventually defeat the basilisk. In this way, Myrtle, though mocked and dismissed, played a vital role in saving the school. Her interactions with Harry later in his fourth year revealed even more about her character. She surprised everyone by befriending him during the Triwizard Tournament. While Harry struggled with the second task, Myrtle appeared to him in the prefect's bathroom, offering unexpected advice and even playful companionship. In those moments, she showed that beneath her moans and dramatics, she longed for connection. She teased Harry, flirted awkwardly, and demonstrated that she was capable of humor and mischief. Her willingness to help revealed that her loneliness had not hardened her completely. She still sought bonds with the living, even if those bonds were fragile and fleeting. Myrtle's unusual friendship with Draco Malfoy in Harry's sixth year adds another dimension to her story. She comforted Draco as he wrestled with the terrible task of repairing the vanishing cabinet to allow Death Eaters into Hogwarts. Draco, burdened by fear and guilt, confided in Myrtle, who listened to him when no one else could. For a boy raised in pride and secrecy, Myrtle's presence was strangely freeing. Her empathy, born of her own suffering, gave Draco a rare outlet for his pain. This relationship revealed Myrtle's capacity for compassion, showing that even in her sorrow, she could provide comfort to those who were also broken. Yet Myrtle's tragedy is that she never moved beyond the insecurities of her youth. She is forever the awkward girl mocked for her glasses, forever the victim of Olive Hornby's cruelty, forever the child who died in a bathroom. She haunts the space of her death, unable or unwilling to leave, her sorrow tethering her to the site of her humiliation and her end. Even in the afterlife, she pursues Olive Hornby, haunting her for years until the Ministry intervened. This fixation demonstrates the depth of her pain, her inability to release the anger and humiliation that defined her life. Symbolically, Myrtle represents the consequences of cruelty and neglect. She is a reminder that Hogwarts, for all its wonders, is not immune to bullying and suffering. She embodies the loneliness of those who do not fit in, the despair of those who are mocked until they break. Her haunting is not frightening but sorrowful, a lesson that laughter at another's expense can leave scars that outlast even death. For students who feel isolated, Myrtle is both a reflection of their pain and a warning of what happens when loneliness consumes. Yet, despite her tragedy, Myrtle is not without importance. Time and again, she has influenced the living, helping Harry solve mysteries, aiding champions in the tournament, comforting Draco in his darkest moments. Though she may moan endlessly, she is proof that even the most overlooked can matter. Her life was short and painful, but her afterlife continues to ripple across Hogwarts' history. She is not merely the ghost of a bathroom, but a figure of quiet resilience, surviving humiliation, rejection, and even death with her voice unextinguished. To picture Myrtle is to imagine her drifting among the stalls of her bathroom, her glasses glinting faintly, her eyes brimming with tears, her voice echoing with complaint and sorrow. Yet in that voice is more than annoyance. It is the sound of a girl who wanted to be seen, who wanted to be loved, who wanted to belong. She is moaning Myrtle, and though her wails may drive students away, her story remains one of the most human in Hogwarts. To fall asleep thinking of her is to hear the echoes of her cries soften into whispers, reminding us that every outcast has a story, every voice matters, and even the most forgotten soul can change the course of history. Peeves is unlike any other spectral being in Hogwarts, for he is not a ghost in the traditional sense. He was never human, never alive, never subject to the mortal experience of flesh and bone. Instead, he is a poltergeist, a manifestation of chaos itself, born from the energy of mischief, rebellion, and youthful disorder that courses through the castle's ancient stones. While ghosts often carry the weight of sorrow, regret, or unfinished lives, Peeves thrives in the present moment. He is the trickster spirit of Hogwarts, gleeful in his disruption, loud in his laughter, and impossible to control. Students alternately fear, admire, and adore him, while professors despair at the endless havoc he causes. Yet despite the trouble, Peeves is part of the soul of Hogwarts. Without him, the castle would lose something vital, its spirit of unpredictability, its reminder that even within stone walls of tradition, chaos has a place. The origins of Peeves are mysterious. No one can say exactly when he first appeared, though records from centuries past mention him. Some suggest that he emerged not long after the founding of Hogwarts, as the collected mischief of thousands of students gathered into one form. Others believe that castles themselves, when filled with youthful energy and magic, sometimes conjure such beings. Whatever his beginnings, Peeves has been at Hogwarts for as long as anyone can remember. He drifts through the halls with a grin and a cackle, armed with tricks and rhymes, delighting in upending order. To Peeves, rules are not constraints but invitations to break. If a corridor is too quiet, he fills it with racket. If students walk neatly, he drops chalk dust or water balloons to scatter them. His appearance matches his antics. A squat, brightly dressed figure with a jester's cap, his eyes glinting with malice and amusement. His form is not as translucent as ghosts, but more solid, though still immune to touch. Peeves's personality is larger than life. He sings insulting rhymes about students and teachers, improvising verses that spread through the school like wildfire. He hurls ink, pebbles, or dung bombs with impeccable aim, creating messes that drive caretakers like Argus Filch to the edge of madness. He swoops down corridors, upending ink pots, tangling hair, or knocking books from arms. He thrives on the reactions he provokes: screams, groans, scolding all fuel his glee. To ignore Peeves is to deprive him of some power, but few manage the patience. The professors of Hogwarts have tried countless times to rid the school of Peeves. Charms, curses, and even exorcisms have been attempted, but none succeed. He is too deeply bound to the castle itself, too much a part of its fabric. At best, he can be evaded, distracted, or temporarily contained, but never destroyed. Dumbledore, with his characteristic tolerance, allowed Peeves to remain, believing that even chaos has its role. Most teachers grit their teeth and endure him, resigned to the fact that Peeves is as permanent as the moving staircases. Filch, however, wages a lifelong war against him, brandishing mop and bucket in vain attempts to outwit his tormentor. Peeves, sensing Filch's hatred, delights in targeting him, escalating his antics whenever the caretaker is near. Only one figure has ever commanded Peeves, the Bloody Baron, the poltergeist, who mocks everyone else with impunity, falls silent under the Baron's glare. At a single word, Peeves slinks away, muttering but obedient. The reason for this obedience is unknown. Some say that Peeves, chaotic though he is, recognizes the depth of darkness in the Baron's soul and respects it. Others speculate that the castle itself bound Peeves to obey one figure, and the Baron, through his blood-stained guilt, was chosen. Whatever the reason, the relationship is unique. It shows that even mischief requires balance, that chaos, left unchecked, must bow to a deeper order. For students, Peeves is both menace and entertainment. Younger years may fear his sudden appearances, but older ones often learn to admire his boldness. He says what they dare not, mocking professors, satirizing rules, and embodying resistance to authority. In times of war, Peeves even fought for Hogwarts. His pranks turned weapons against Death Eaters. He hurled projectiles, created distractions, and caused chaos that aided the defenders. For all his nuisance, Peeves proved his loyalty in that moment, showing that his mischief was not malice, but a deeper allegiance to the castle and those who loved it. He is part of Hogwarts' identity, a symbol that no matter how dark times become, mischief and laughter will always endure. Beyond Peeves, Hogwarts has other restless spirits who are less well known. Some are fleeting echoes, shades of students or teachers who passed but did not linger fully. These figures drift at the edges of vision, glimpsed only in torchlight or at the corner of a mirror. They are not as solid or as interactive as the house ghosts, but their presence deepens the sense of history that fills the school. In the dungeons, some speak of a duel gone wrong centuries ago, with two wraith-like figures still clashing in silence, their ghostly swords striking endlessly in rehearsal of an unfinished quarrel. In the Forbidden Forest, whispers tell of faint spirits glimpsed among the trees, perhaps tied to magical beasts or long-forgotten tragedies. Whether these are true ghosts or only echoes conjured by fear is uncertain, but the tales persist. Peeves himself delights in these rumors. He mocks students with hints of phantoms, sneaks up behind them whispering of dead duelists, and uses their fear to fuel his pranks. His laughter, ringing down corridors, becomes entwined with these ghostly stories, ensuring that Hogwarts remains not only a place of learning but of mystery. The interplay of solemn ghosts, like the Grey Lady, with chaotic ones like Peeves, reveals the school's unique balance. Hogwarts is a place where memory and mischief live side by side, where even the dead and those never alive continue to shape the lives of the young. To imagine Peeves at night is to see him swooping through darkened halls, humming a rude song, tossing water balloons at unsuspecting prefects, and laughing until the rafters ring. His chaos is exhausting, but it is also life-affirming, a reminder that laughter endures even when shadow looms. In contrast, the quieter, restless spirits linger at the edge, silent reminders of the school's tragedies. Together, they weave a tapestry of noise and silence, of mischief and memory that makes Hogwarts feel alive in a way no other place could. Peeves is not a ghost of sorrow but of defiance. He represents the part of Hogwarts that refuses to be too serious, that refuses to let rules suppress spirit. Though he has no mortal story, no tragic past, his very existence is a story, a reminder that joy, laughter, and rebellion are as much a part of education as books and spells. To fall asleep thinking of him is to hear his cackles echo faintly in the distance, to imagine ink splattering across a stone wall, and to smile at the thought that somewhere in that ancient castle, mischief never dies. Professor Cuthbert Binns is perhaps the most peculiar ghost at Hogwarts, not because of how he died, but because of what he chose to do afterward. Where most ghosts drift the halls, mourn their pasts, or serve as symbols for their houses, Binns simply kept teaching. The story goes that one evening, after dozing off in the staff room chair, he died in his sleep. The next morning, he rose, left his body behind, and walked through the door to begin his class as though nothing had changed. From that day onward, he continued lecturing on the history of magic, unbothered by the fact that he no longer drew breath. His monotone voice, his endless droning about goblin rebellions, and his apparent obliviousness to the world around him turned his lessons into a battle against drowsiness for every student who sat in his class. Binns is more than a running joke about boring lectures. His presence reflects both the power and the limitation of ghosts. He is bound to his subject, to the repetition of dates, battles, and treaties that he recites year after year. In some ways, he is a non-living embodiment of the weight of history. He cannot change, cannot adapt, cannot alter his style or methods. His inability to notice the world around him makes him frustrating, but it also highlights the sadness of ghostly existence. Binns remains because he cannot let go. His passion for teaching, or perhaps his fear of moving on, trapping him in an eternal classroom. Students laugh at his droning voice, but he is also a reminder that clinging too tightly to the familiar can become a prison. Despite his monotony, Binns occasionally provides crucial knowledge. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione sought the truth about the Chamber of Secrets, it was Binns they asked. Though dismissive of the legend, he was the only professor to recount the history of the chamber, giving the trio the information they needed to pursue the mystery further. His role as a ghostly educator thus serves the plot in subtle ways. For all his tedious lectures, Binns remains an irreplaceable link to the past, the custodian of a memory that no living teacher can match. He is living history, even if his students struggle to stay awake long enough to hear it. Beyond Binns, Hogwarts is whispered to host other, lesser-known ghosts. Not all are as formal as the house specters, nor as loud as Peeves. Some are fleeting, half-formed, little more than shadows in the corner of the eye. Students tell stories of strange figures glimpsed at night, a cloaked shape drifting across the grounds, a weeping woman near the lake, or faint echoes of laughter in the astronomy tower. Whether these are true spirits or only imagination stirred by the castle's age and mystery is hard to say. Hogwarts seems to gather memory in its stones, and sometimes memory feels alive. One of the most enduring tales is that of the dueling ghosts, said to haunt the dungeons. Long ago, 2 students fought a bitter duel that ended in death, and ever since, their shades have been seen clashing in silence. Blades of light spark but make no sound, and their movements repeat endlessly, as though the moment of conflict plays itself again and again. Students who glimpse the duelers describe the scene as eerie, sad, and strangely mesmerizing. Unlike Peeves's chaos or Binns's droning, the duelers embody unresolved anger, a reminder that Hogwarts has witnessed not only learning but conflict. Whether these duelers are true ghosts or echoes of memory remains uncertain, but their story lingers, told in whispers among generations of students. Another legend speaks of a spectral figure in the Forbidden Forest. Hunters and wanderers at the forest's edge have claimed to see a pale, luminous shape moving among the trees, its form indistinct but unmistakably human. Some say it is the spirit of a witch who died defending the forest creatures, others that it is a lost student who never found the way back. Whatever the truth, the presence reinforces the idea that Hogwarts's grounds are not merely home to the living. Even in places of danger, memory lingers, as though those who loved the forest or who perished within it could not bring themselves to leave. Seasonal ghostly appearances also add to the lore of Hogwarts. On Halloween, the Great Hall is filled with spirits who appear only once a year. These are not the regular house ghosts, but figures from the school's long history, drawn back for the celebration. They glide through the tables, greeting one another, exchanging stories of times long past. Students delight in the eerie beauty of the spectacle, but beneath the wonder lies a reminder. Hogwarts is a place where centuries overlap, where the living and the dead gather in the same light. These temporary visitors remind the school that its legacy is vast, its memory boundless. The role of ghosts in preserving Hogwarts history cannot be overstated. Portraits may provide knowledge, but they are bound to the personalities and moments captured in paint. Ghosts, on the other hand, carry memory in their very essence. The Grey Lady remembers her betrayal, the Baron his guilt, Nick his humiliation, the Friar his forgiveness, Myrtle her bullying, and Binns his lessons. Each embodies not just knowledge but the emotions tied to it. They are walking stories, accessible to any student brave or kind enough to ask. Through them, Hogwarts becomes more than a school. It becomes a living archive, where the past is not merely studied, but encountered. Yet the line between myth and haunting is often blurred. For every ghost with a clear history, there are dozens of tales whose origins are lost. Students tell one another about a ghostly cat that prowls the corridors, about whispers in the library that seem to come from no one, about faint figures seen on the Quidditch pitch in misty dawns. Whether these are real spirits, magical illusions, or the tricks of imagination, they add to the atmosphere of Hogwarts. The school is a place where mystery thrives, where even the shadows may hold stories. Ghosts, both named and unnamed, are part of that enchantment, weaving together the past and present into one continuous tapestry. To imagine Hogwarts at night is to picture Professor Binns still lecturing to an empty classroom, his voice echoing through the stone walls. It is to picture the duelers locked in their eternal clash, sparks of ghostly energy flashing in silence. It is to glimpse faint lights in the Forbidden Forest, to hear whispers in the library, to feel the presence of countless spirits who have passed through the castle's halls. The ghosts of Hogwarts are not merely characters, but the embodiment of the school's memory. They remind students that every corridor holds stories, that every stone has witnessed lives, and that nothing truly disappears in a place so steeped in history. Not every ghost tied to Hogwarts is confined to its walls. Some are connected through lore, through the wizarding world at large, and through stories that echo in classrooms and common rooms long after the figures themselves faded. These tales expand the meaning of ghosts, showing that they are not merely phantoms but embodiments of choice, of longing, of regret, and sometimes of love for a place or a people. When students whisper about spirits beyond the castle, They are often exploring the boundaries between the known and the mysterious. To speak of such figures is to remember that Hogwarts is part of a wider magical world, and that the bond between the living and the dead is not confined by stone walls. One of the most important elements of ghostly lore is the difference between ghosts and other echoes of magic. Ghosts are conscious. They think, feel, and interact with the living. Yet they are incomplete, shadows of their former selves, forever tied to the world they cannot leave. Other magical echoes exist, memories trapped in objects, shadows left behind by powerful spells, and enchanted portraits. Students often confuse these phenomena, but ghosts are unique in their agency. They linger because they chose to, often out of fear, guilt, or deep attachment. In learning about them, students are taught not only about death, but about the choices that define existence. The ghost of Myrtle Warren illustrates this distinction clearly. Unlike a mere memory, she converses, complains, and sulks in her bathroom. She is aware of events around her, even if she cannot affect them physically. The Grey Lady, too, demonstrates consciousness, withholding her secret about the diadem until trust was earned. By contrast, the enchanted portrait of Dumbledore can provide guidance, but it lacks the full soul of the man it depicts. Ghosts are incomplete but real, tied to their unfinished lives in ways no enchantment can fully replicate. This distinction is one of the earliest lessons Hogwarts students learn about death, even if they do not realize it. Among the stories told in the wider wizarding world is the tale of the Headless Hunt, a ghostly cavalcade of decapitated figures who roam together, celebrating their grisly state. Sir Nicholas, nearly headless and forever excluded from their company, often recounts his bitterness at their rejection. The hunt itself is a reminder that ghosts, like the living, form communities, alliances, and rivalries. They are not static but social, and their dramas echo those of the living. Students who hear Nick speak of the hunt learn that even in death, belonging and exclusion still matter, and that pride and vanity do not fade with the grave. Another figure often discussed in ghostly lore is the Wailing Widow, who haunts a castle in Scotland. She is said to have attempted to join the Hogwarts ghosts during a Halloween feast, her loud sobs carrying over the tables. Her presence illustrates that Hogwarts is not the only place where spirits linger, but it is unusual in attracting so many to remain. The combination of youthful energy, ancient magic, and deep history seems to draw the dead as much as the living. While other castles may have one or two phantoms, Hogwarts boasts dozens, each woven into the school's rhythm. Ghosts are also deeply tied to the question of magical courage. The wise say that only those too afraid to move on become ghosts. Those who accept death fully pass beyond, while those who cling to life linger in diminished form. In this sense, Hogwarts ghosts are not only characters, but cautionary tales. Helena Ravenclaw's fear of her mother's judgment, the Bloody Baron's inability to forgive himself, and Myrtle's clinging to bitterness all reflect choices made at death. Students who speak to them gain glimpses of the dangers of fear, of pride, of regret. To be a ghost is to survive, but not fully to live. This theme resonates in the wider world as well. Ghosts outside Hogwarts are often tied to violent deaths, unresolved grudges, or powerful attachments. They haunt places of trauma, appearing where the living world pressed them hardest. To encounter such a ghost is often to glimpse not just a person but a moment frozen in time. In wizarding culture, ghosts are both respected and pitied. They are sought for guidance, as with Professor Binns, yet they are also reminders of the loss inherent in refusing to move on. They are wisdom and warning embodied together. Students at Hogwarts often learn ghostly lore through interaction, but also through the stories told by their elders. On stormy nights, older students may whisper about apparitions in the Forbidden Forest or about restless spirits along the Black Lake. These tales blend fact and imagination, but they reinforce the idea that Hogwarts is a place where the barrier between life and death is thin. To study there is to live alongside reminders of mortality every day. The castle itself seems to encourage these stories, its shifting staircases and shadowy corners perfect settings for ghostly encounters. Some of the most mysterious accounts involve battlefield ghosts. It is said that in ancient times, when wars swept through the Scottish Highlands, the fallen left echoes in the landscape. On certain nights, phantom armies are said to march across the moors, their banners tattered, their cries silent but felt in the chest. Though these figures are not tied to Hogwarts directly, their stories are told in its dormitories, inspiring awe and fear in equal measure. For students preparing for their own struggles, such stories are both chilling and strangely comforting. They suggest that courage leaves a mark beyond death, that the brave are never entirely forgotten. In all these tales, the constant thread is memory. Ghosts embody memory made flesh, or near flesh walking reminders of choices, failures, triumphs, and sorrows. To live in Hogwarts is to live in dialogue with memory, to sit in classrooms where a ghost drones on, to eat in a hall where specters drift past, to laugh as Peeves wreaks havoc. The school is alive with history not only in books, but in beings who lived it. Ghosts make the past present, giving students a unique education, one not only of spells and charms, but of mortality, regret, and the weight of choice. To drift into sleep thinking of Hogwarts ghosts is to picture them in their varied forms. Nick adjusting his ruff, the Grey Lady gliding in silence, the Baron looming with his chain, the Friar smiling kindly, Myrtle sobbing in her bathroom, Binns droning in his classroom, Peeves cackling from the rafters, and countless lesser shades lingering at the edges of vision. Together, they create an atmosphere that is both eerie and comforting, both sorrowful and alive. They remind us that Hogwarts is not merely a school of magic, but a place where the living and the dead coexist, where memory itself takes shape, and where every shadow may hold a story waiting to be told. During the Battle of Hogwarts, when the castle became a battlefield and the fate of the wizarding world hung in the balance, the presence of ghosts was more striking than ever. Though they could not duel or cast spells, the ghosts bore witness, their spectral forms gliding through the chaos like memories refusing to fade. To the living, their presence was a reminder that Hogwarts had endured centuries of struggle and would endure this night as well. The castle was not only defended by wands and courage, but also by the weight of its past, embodied in the spirits who lingered within its walls. Nearly Headless Nick moved among frightened students, his calm voice reassuring them even as curses cracked in the distance. He could not protect them with spells, but his words steadied their hearts. The Grey Lady was seen drifting through ruined corridors, her silence more eloquent than any speech, a figure of grief and dignity in the storm. The Bloody Baron loomed like a dark omen, his chains rattling faintly, as if to remind the Death Eaters that some sins could never be escaped. The Fat Friar offered gentle words, praying for the injured, his kindness steady even when terror reigned. Moaning Myrtle wept in the flooded bathroom, her cries carrying eerily through the pipes, a strange echo of sorrow that matched the despair of the battle. Perhaps the most unusual figure that night was Peeves. For centuries, he had been the bane of Hogwarts' order, a nuisance whose pranks frustrated every professor. Yet in that desperate hour, Peeves turned his chaos into weaponry. He dropped heavy objects on Death Eaters, created distractions, and sang rude songs that mocked Voldemort's followers, breaking their concentration. His mischief became defiance, his laughter a symbol that even terror could not extinguish the spirit of rebellion. For once, the living fought alongside the poltergeist, and his role was remembered with strange fondness afterward. Students who had once cursed his name would smile years later, recalling how Peeves had joined the defense in his own anarchic way. The ghosts themselves, bound by their nature, could not die again, nor could they change the course of spells. Yet they bore witness, and in that act of witnessing, they offered a gift. For every student who looked into their pale eyes, there was a reminder that others had lived, had died, and had chosen to stay because Hogwarts mattered. The spirits were symbols of loyalty, not only to the school but to the values it represented. The Grey Lady, haunted by her betrayal, reminded fighters of the danger of pride. The Baron, chained in blood, reminded them of the cost of violence. Nick, half excluded from the Headless Hunt, reminded them of the dignity in persistence. The Friar reminded them that compassion endures even in darkness. When the battle ended and the dead were counted, the ghosts lingered among the survivors. They did not rejoice, nor did they grieve as the living did. Instead, they moved quietly among the wounded and the mourning, their faces grave. Some say Myrtle's sobs softened, as though she, too, understood that her suffering had been echoed in the pain of others. Peeves was uncharacteristically quiet, drifting through shattered halls as though savoring the victory in silence. For a time, the ghosts seemed united in solemnity, their usual antics and sorrows set aside out of respect for the fallen. In the years after the war, the ghosts continued as they always had, their habits unchanged. Yet to the students who came afterward, they seemed different. Stories of their roles in the battle spread, and the younger generations saw them less as nuisances and more as guardians of memory. Ghosts became symbols of endurance, reminders that Hogwarts was not just a school but a place where the past was never forgotten. When new students asked about the spectral figures gliding through the halls, older students told them tales of bravery, grief, and resilience. In this way, the ghost's symbolic role deepened. They were no longer just curiosities, but part of the school's identity as a place that survived. Symbolically, the ghosts embody what it means to linger between life and death. They are not whole, yet they are not gone. They are unfinished stories walking among the living, teaching lessons through their very existence. The Grey Lady teaches humility and the danger of pride. The Baron teaches the burden of guilt. The Friar teaches kindness even in exile. Nick teaches persistence in the face of rejection. Myrtle teaches the cost of cruelty and the pain of isolation. Binns teaches the danger of clinging to habit. Peeves, though not a ghost, teaches the value of chaos as resistance. Together, they create a spectrum of lessons that no textbook could provide. In the larger story of Hogwarts, ghosts remind us that history is not abstract. It is personal, embodied, and alive. Students who walk the halls do not simply study the past. They converse with it. They hear Nick's complaints, Myrtle's sobs, Binns's lectures, Peeves's rhymes. They live side by side with memory, learning that the past is never gone, that it shapes the present in every step. This intertwining of life and death is part of what makes Hogwarts unique. It is a place where loss is acknowledged, where regret has a voice, and where even unfinished souls find meaning. To imagine Hogwarts ghosts as one drifts to sleep is to picture them as eternal companions to the castle. They float through corridors that have seen centuries, bearing witness to joys and tragedies alike. Their presence is a comfort and a caution, a reminder that life is precious, that choices matter, and that memory endures. They are not frightening, not truly. They are solemn, sometimes silly, sometimes sorrowful, always present. In their persistence, they teach us what it means to be human, to strive, to fail, to regret, to love, and to carry on even when burdened by unfinished stories. In the end, the ghosts of Hogwarts are less about death than about remembrance. They are the school's way of ensuring that nothing is ever entirely lost, that every mistake, every act of kindness, every tragedy and triumph remains part of its living fabric. For students who pass through those halls, the ghosts are not just curiosities, but teachers of a different kind. They remind us that the past is always near, that history is never silent, and that even in sorrow, there can be meaning. To fall asleep thinking of them is to drift into dreams where the past and present meet, where laughter and tears echo together, and where the walls of Hogwarts whisper with stories that never fade.